It's 7 p.m. on July 5th, 2017. I'd like to commence the meeting of the Revere Conservation Commission. First item on the agenda is roll call. Member Robert Cassidy. Toby, you here? Yeah, I just asked. Thank you. Member Vince Loria.
Here.
Member Joseph Lavalle.
Here.
Member Nick Malason.
Here.
Member Ann Raponi.
Here.
Absent is Member James Serboni. And I'm Andrew B. DeSantis, Chairman of the Conservation Commission. Next item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes of June 7th. Before we do that,
If
why
I
don't
may
we
have a moment of personal privilege, if I may.
Go right ahead, Ann.
Okay. I'd like to take this opportunity with a heavy heart to ask that we take a moment of silence in respect to our beloved mayor, former mayor Bob Hass, former councilor at large.
Thank you,
A
Ann.
wonderful, wonderful man. Let us take a moment of silence for him. Thank you.
Okay, we'll resume the meeting.
Thank you very much.
Anybody in the listening audience that's trying to get into City Hall, use the bottom floor entrance on the Pleasant Street side. We've got a problem with the doors. Next item on the agenda is approval of the minutes of June 7th, 2017. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Motion by Vin Loria. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Member Joseph Lavalle. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Voted in the affirmative. And Member James Serboni is present. Next item on the agenda is a public hearing notice of intent, DEP File Number 0610700, Lot 6, Ocean Ave, construction of an hotel with 2 levels of structured parking, Lixi Hospitality Revere LLC.
Good evening, members of the commission. My name is Budge Upton. I am also the developer of
Why don't we
Oceans.
take a motion first to open the public hearing? A motion to open the public hearing?
I'll make a motion.
I'll
make a
second it.
Nick Malason, do we have a second?
Second.
Vincent Loria, all those in favor? Any opposed? Voted in the affirmative. Back to you, Budge.
Thank you. I'm Budge Upton, among other things, the developer of Ocean 650 project, which we've recently completed on the beach. And Upton Partners has been retained by the Lixi Group out of Montreal, Canada, to provide services as their owner's representative here locally for the development of their hotel on parcels. It's the parcel which is just south of the Cable Stay Bridge. In order to move the meeting along, I'd like to introduce Katie Cruz, who is with Hancock Associates, who will make the presentation. To give you a quick overview of the program before Katie speaks that's being implemented, the project will consist of 150 hotel rooms, a restaurant, a coffee cafe, exterior courtyards. There's a fitness center. There will be a swimming pool on the interior of the building, and first-class architecture, which is being designed by CR Architects out of Cincinnati, Ohio. That said, why don't I turn the meeting over to Katie, and after her presentation, we'd be more than happy to take questions.
One question, two questions.
Sure.
Is a full-service hotel, full-service restaurant in the hotel?
Yes.
And how many floors?
Likely whether there's There's a breakfast service, and then there's also a major restaurant, which we likely lease to an outside tenant.
Great.
There's also a coffee bar of, I believe it's 3,000 square feet, that'll be managed by a name that we're all well familiar with.
And how many stories?
To be honest with you, I don't know what the store count would be. It's
Okay, that's fine.
Okay?
Thank you.
Katie,
Katie?
the floor is yours.
As Budge said, this is the furthest south project in the waterfront square development.
We know who you are, Katie,
Oh,
but
sorry.
introduce yourself.
I'm Katie Cruz. I'm from Hancock Associates. This project is located just south of the elevated pedestrian bridge to the Wonderland Station. The Wonderland Station is located to the rear of the project site. The project is just over 1.25 acres. In the existing condition, the project area consists of a paved parking lot. The proposed project will result in a decrease in impervious area because we'll be adding landscaped areas. Therefore, there'll be a decrease in stormwater runoff from the site. Stormwater runoff will enter the existing municipal drainage system in Ocean Avenue, which eventually connects back to the Eastern County ditch. Utility services from the site will be accessed from the mains in Ocean Avenue, and they will run down the southern end of the building. The building includes 2 levels of parking underneath the hotel, and the parking areas are accessed on the southern end of the site along here. And there will also be access to the lobby of the building from a circular driveway off of Ocean Avenue here.
Would you show where Wonderland Station is in relation to the site, Katie?
Yep, the Wonderland Station is here. Right here is the elevated walkway, and these buildings back here are the station. The blue line tracks, the end of the blue line tracks continue in this direction and then head south towards Boston.
Thank you. Questions?
Through the chair.
Member LaValle?
Could you, a little more details on the parking? The first elevation is at what is now ground level, is that so? Or are you going down further? Or?
No, the first elevation is at ground level. The garage and the building is designed to be a flow-through structure, so floodwaters can flow in and out of the building through openings. The existing grade rises a bit in the back of the site, and we've kept the lower level of the parking garage mostly flat, but there will still be ability for water to exit in and out of the building freely.
And also, Andy, we usually have a plan for an emergency about cars parking down there.
Yes.
Are you aware of that procedure that we?
Yeah, but there will be a plan in place for cars to evacuate the parking structure that are located below the flood elevation prior to a flood event.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
Yeah, I
Member
just have
Savoni?
one. Yes, please, thank you. Yeah, under, in your notice of intent, under regulatory compliance, can you just touch upon the final paragraph? You say, although the project is located within a floodplain, there's no practicable alternative that would allow redevelopment of this area while avoiding flooding hazards entirely. That's understood. But you said you've designed the project to responsibly minimize the risk of flood-related damage and to improve existing conditions. So if you could just touch upon the improvements to existing conditions.
Right, so for one thing, we'll be adding landscaped areas, so there'll be a potential for water to infiltrate on the site where it's not available now.
Yeah, so how much area?
Currently there's one strip of landscaped area along here. We're adding landscaped areas in the front, areas along the
Square
drive.
footage.
I don't have the exact square footage, but actually I do here.
The square footage of parking area? I'm sorry, of the
Square
project?
footage of permeable surface or percentage of the lot coverage that'll be permeable versus right now, I believe it's 100% impermeable. Maybe the strip along the walkway is there now, but I know
Right.
previously it was all pavement.
I'd rely on Hancock for that answer. If we don't have it right now, we'll certainly get it to you right away. Do you have it? Katie's going to tell you what we do have, and if we're short, we'll get you whatever you do need.
So I don't have exact square footages at the moment, but I do have peak rates of run, I'm sorry, I do have exact square footages. So in the existing condition, there, and I'll give you pervious area, there's 2,038 square feet of landscape area. Then in the proposed condition, if you'll hold on one moment. I don't have that right now, I apologize, but the number is about 5,000, I believe, and I can verify that for you.
So can I recommend that we get that information?
What's the question, Jim?
I'm sorry, are you looking for the permeable area?
Yes,
Versus the-
because that's part of,
Right, I mean, I can't
to
give you...
improve to the maximum extent practicable.
What I can tell you is that the larger portion of the site is impermeable. It's concrete site. The landscaped areas are minimal because the building footprint fills up almost the entire site. We've got minimal landscaped area along the frontage. See that the building footprint comes to a sidewalk which abuts Ocean Avenue. There's some additional landscaping in here on the entrance road that effectively is a service road for the hotel and also access and egress to the parking garage. It's going to be easy for us to do a square footage takeoff. I would estimate somewhere in the range of 3,000 to 4,000 square feet for the entire site, which is not a large number because of the size of the footprint.
You're also taking area out of the drainage area with the parking garage, because parking garage, I know definitely the covered portion's got to go to sanitary, and I would presume the upper portion's going to sanitary too.
I think that's a fair assumption.
So the area of the parking garage, even that exposed to the air, will be draining to sanitary sewer rather than storm sewer, so there'll be a net decrease in stormwater flows.
I mean, the covered portion of the site is roughly equivalent to what you have today because it's basically a paved parking lot.
The land use is going to change significantly.
Right, that's right,
So
that's right.
what I'm looking for is what you're going to have for impervious, or infiltration in the area compared to what you have now.
Infiltration
That's
into the system or into the ground?
to the ground.
Into
That's
the
a
ground.
requirement of your NOI submittal.
Fact of the matter is, there's not a lot of permeable.
We need numbers. I mean, you're giving me like,
We'll get you
I'm not really
numbers.
sure it's more than there is today. I would hope so, because you're building a hotel, and right now there's a parking lot there.
Right.
So, yeah, I would hope there would be more impervious or less impervious area than what's there today.
We'll get you some numbers.
Thank you.
Do you have depth to groundwater?
Yes, groundwater in the area is about elevation 2.
So that's, what's the surface elevation?
The surface elevation is about 6 to about 8.
So you do have some room for infiltration then?
Yes. And I would like to point out that we will be treating the runoff from the site proprietary separators, which is not the case in the current condition. Plus, right now, the entire site consists of a parking lot, which is more susceptible to oil droppings and dirtier water. And in this case, we'll be having mostly roof area.
How big's the
Well,
site?
but you're changing the number, you're increasing the actual number of parking there.
We're increasing the parking, but the parking is all undercover,
Right.
and it will be going to the sanitary sewer system, and it will be treated via oil water separators.
But rather
as
than
well.
going through the stormwater system, it's going into the sanitary sewer system.
It will be undercover, and we don't anticipate that there will be a lot of water in most conditions other than water blowing in and out, unless there's a flooding event.
Anybody else? What's the will of the commission on this matter? Do you want to hold it for a month? Or do you want to just get the information?
Yeah, I think I would recommend we get the information requested and issue an order of conditions.
Go ahead and close the hearing and issue an order, which I
Yes.
prepared? Okay.
That's my motion.
Motion by James Saboni,
And I'll second it.
to close an issue and to ask receipt of the information before I sign off on a building permit, if you'd provide that information.
We'll get it to you right away.
Okay,
Right away.
good. Do I have a second? Oh, you seconded. I heard you say something, but I wasn't sure what you said. All those in favor? Aye. Signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Voted in the affirmative.
Thank you very
Butch.
much.
Thank you, Katie. Nick? Next item on the agenda is notice of intent, DEP File 0610701, Bellevue Street, construction of two-family dwellings and associated roadway improvements, Bellevue Revere LLC. We have a motion to open the public hearing.
I'll make a motion.
That was by,
Second.
second by Vince. All those in favor? Any opposed? Voted in the affirmative.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. For the record, my name is Rick Salvo with Engineering Alliance. I'm here this evening on behalf of Bellevue Revere LLC. Unfortunately, the manager of the LLC, Jamie Russo, wasn't able to be here this evening. He's not currently in the country, but we are here to represent him and hopefully answer questions as to the best of our ability. This particular project is located at the end of Bellevue Avenue. It abuts the train tracks on one side. The lot is currently vacant, comprised of about 24,000 square feet. The lot was recently surveyed by Boston Survey. The datum elevation utilized for the topography is NAVD 88, which is commensurate with the FEMA flood map for the area to be able to delineate the limit of the 100-year floodplain. We did have Rimmer Environmental Consulting go out to the site about 2 weeks ago to verify that there were no other wetland resource areas on site. There's no priority habitat. There's no endangered species. There's no vernal pools. So the only resource area that we're dealing with for this particular project is land subject to coastal storm flowage, which is also elevation 12 on the latest FEMA map and is depicted by the red line on this plan. As the commission may be aware, this project did go through the Board of Appeals recently. Also requires Conservation Commission approval, will also require Planning Board approval for the development of an existing paper street, which would be going to subsequent to this approval. This project was approved through the council for 2 fourplex dwelling units, so that's a total of 8 units, and approximately 312 linear feet extension of Bellevue Avenue. If you look at the roadway profile here and follow my pen, the existing topography of the road to something like this, we'll be raising the grade at the end of the road so as to accommodate a subsurface infiltration system to mitigate the stormwater that is captured by the road. As you're aware, any projects in excess of 4 multi-family units, under the stormwater regs require that you comply. There's no redevelopment here, so there's no complying to the extent practicable, so we had to fully comply with the stormwater regs. The proposed roadway design will include an 8% grade through a vertical curve that'll translate down to a 1% grade at the bottom. At the low point of the road, which is located back in this area here, we're proposing 2 deep sump catch basins with hooded outlets, which will discharge to a context CDS unit, which will then discharge to a series of Cultex units, which will then overflow through an outlet control structure in the flared end section back to the down gradient land where the stormwater currently flows. Currently, stormwater flows in a northeasterly direction from the top of Bellevue Ave. There's a high point in and around this area here, and all the stormwater flows down this way towards the land in the back. The discharge point's going to be adjacent to the railroad station, railroad tracks, The owner and developer for this project has the next piece of land under agreement with the next property owner down. When we expect that we'd be coming back before this board, hopefully next month, to file a notice of intent for the development of that land as well. Bellevue Avenue ends right here, so there's no future extension of Bellevue Avenue proposed beyond that area. As far as the lot development goes, as I said, there are 2 fourplex dwelling units. Each dwelling unit will be equipped with its own dry well, located in the rear of the property here. As you can see, there's minimal grading along the rear of the property. The grading along all the developed residential area to the rear of the property will remain as is. There is no proposed change in that particular topography. We will be meeting the grade along the embankment that heads towards the railroad on the westerly side, and there's a small retaining wall proposed along this side here, so as to maintain the integrity of the right-of-way and not grade onto the railroad property. As I said, the only impact, or the only resource area here that gets impacted is that of land subject to coastal storm floods, which, as you know, does not have any performance standards. We did submit backup calculations to prove that we are complying with all the standards of the stormwater management regulations. So I guess with that, I turn it back to the commission for any questions or comments that you have.
Questions or comments from Mr. Salvo?
Yes.
Member Lavalley?
Question of the drawing. That on the right-hand side, that area that's coming down, I guess it's dark green. Is that some kind of public parking or guest parking? No, on the other side.
Oh,
Keep
I
going.
apologize. Yes, right in here you're
Yes.
talking about. There was a request during the, I don't know if it came through site plan review or if it came through the city council, that the fire department had requested a turnaround down there. So that's an emergency vehicle turnaround for the fire department. So their engine, so the fire department was good enough to supply us with a turning template for their largest piece of apparatus that they wanted to be able to, that they'd want to bring down to this site. And the way that it works is it would pull in here back out here and then be able to drive back out rather than backing all the way down Bellevue, especially given the grade change that's there. They weren't interested in backing a vehicle up or down that street.
Anybody else? Questions, comments? Anybody in the audience?
Andy, I'm sorry.
Go right ahead.
Just kind of a continuation. And who takes care of that turnaround then? That's the property owners or?
Property owners, that's right. It's private. This is going to be a condominium, so that'll be written into the condominium documents, that is the responsibility of the condominium.
And so this is going to be an owner-owned condominium? Or does an outside agent? Well, my question is, as time goes on, that has to be plowed and everything else like that. Is it up to the 8 residents who live there that?
Correct. So just like any condominium is required by law to create documents, master deeds and unit deeds that gets recorded, and it outlines the responsibilities, both financial and otherwise. So there will be, almost all condominiums in the Commonwealth, you pay a condo fee every month that goes into certain maintenance funds, whether it be maintaining the landscaping, plowing the roads, repaving the roads, fixing the roofs, fixing common areas, whatever it is. That would be included within that. There would be a common area to this development.
Anybody else? Anybody in the audience? In favor or opposed? What's the will of the commission? I
Make
prepared
a
note of
motion to
conditions.
approve.
What was Nick?
Make a motion to approve.
Motion to close the public hearing and issue order.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed? So voted.
Thank you very much.
Here you go, Nick. Next item on the agenda is public hearing, notice of intent, DEP file number 0610702, 320 Charger Street, construction of 2 storage facility buildings, R&S Realty Trust. Do we have a motion to open the public hearing?
I'll make a motion to open.
Vinnie made it, I'll second it.
Okay. All those in favor? Any opposed? Floor is yours. Introduce yourself, please.
Thank you, members of the board. My name is Eric Bradnisi of Engineering Alliance. We're here on behalf of R&S Realty Trust, and also Steve Caruso is here of R&S Realty Trust. So the project is located at 320 Charger Street, which is right at the end of Charger Street, as you can see here in this image. It's this existing warehouse building here that abuts Romney Marsh along the end of Charger Street. The property is located within the FEMA floodplain. The existing conditions were done on the NAVD 88 datum, and the floodplain is located at elevation 9, as you can see. On the FEMA map we have here, this border here delineates where the wetland, the floodplain comes into the property. The floodplain line on our site plan is actually delineated by this red line that you can see on the site plan here. That line also delineates the ACEC of Romney Marsh, again, elevation 9. They both delineate the same. The existing condition of the property consists of the existing warehouse building. There is a bituminous concrete parking area, and then a portion of the property is also hard pan where it's used as storage area. The site is currently constitutes relatively flat. The grades range from approximately 0.5% to 1.5%. So the proposed project is to construct 2 new storage facilities. Building A here, it's approximately 25,000 square feet, and Building B here, which is approximately 3,900 square feet. Building A will be a 5-story building that includes a drive-through through the middle that's delineated by these dash lines through here. Cars would be able to drive through the first 2 floors, and then the top 3 floors will consist of storage units as well. The project had gone before the Board of Appeals, and it received zoning relief for setbacks, open space, FAR, parking, and driveway width. The relief they were for landscaping is we were allowed to have 10% landscaping on the property, which is approximately 7,000 square feet in the proposed condition for the landscaping. The new buildings will be serviced. We look to extend the existing sewer line that's in Charger Street with a 6-inch PVC sewer main that will run through the property. And then each building will have their own 6-inch PVC sewer service. We're also looking to run a 6-inch CLDI water main through the property as well, up to a proposed hydrant at the back corner of the property here. And each will be equipped with a domestic service and a fire service as well. In regards to regulatory compliance, the area is land subject to coastal storm flowage, which at this point in time doesn't have any performance standards, but the ACEC for Rumney Marsh requires a significant improvement on the property, which we have decreased the impervious area by adding the landscape buffers around the end. And we have included stormwater management for the proposed buildings, which will be infiltrated by a series of Caltech units. Each building has its own separate system, and then all surface runoff will be captured by deep sump-hooded catch basins that drain to Context CDS units, proprietary separators, before discharging to an existing drain line at the rear of the property here. And the stormwater systems that we've shown on here are designed with the minimum cover to get them up as high as possible. If possible, we'd like to perform soil testing during construction, just to verify the assumptions that we made for the proposed systems. And with that, if there's any questions, I'd be more than happy to try to answer them for you.
Any questions or comments to Mr. Bradnisi?
Yes,
Member LaValle?
Mr. Chairman. What is the present business of that facility? You said it's a storage?
The existing building is a warehouse, I believe.
Yeah, for the record, Rick Salvo. So that is a maintenance building right now that's owned and operated by the same owner that's in the applicant.
Is this a proposed self-storage facility?
Correct. So this building here is a 5-story, climate-controlled, state-of-the-art self-storage. The drive-through here is 2 levels high. It's intended that folks can come in. They have a pass key to be able to get in. It is manned during business hours, so you can go in and do your business, rent a unit, you get a swipe card, you gain access that way. You can pull in the dry and be able to use freight elevators to be able to tote your goods up to your service storage area and store it. This area here is more of a high bay space. It's a single story with garage doors in the front, probably going to be more intended for your plumbers, electricians, that sort of thing, that just need a spot to park a van, maybe do some paperwork, store some supplies, and that sort of thing.
Are any of the structures being flood-proofed?
The proposal is to raise the grade, because there's such a minimal change in elevation, to get them just outside of the floodplain. So the adjacent grade around the buildings will be set at elevation 10.2,
Both structures?
both structures.
Any further questions?
Yes.
Member
Mr.
Saboni?
Chairman, thank you. So I wasn't clear on what the existing operations are at the property.
Please introduce yourself, Steve.
Yes, Steve Caruso. I'm one of the trustees of R&S Realty Trust. We've had that property since 1981. That existing building consists of 3 tenants are in that building. One is a company called Bumper to Bumper. They service cars. They work on oil changes, mufflers, stuff like that, of that nature. The second part of that same building is rented by a company called Snowlift. They do their maintenance there. Also, they have the contract for the Logan Airport, so they're going to be there for at least 5 years. We're going to actually move them around. And the rest of the building is used by ourselves for the maintenance of our heavy equipment and trucks that are down there.
Thank you, Steve.
You're very welcome.
Anything else?
Yeah, I had another question. Can you please just go into a little more detail about the significant improvements to the discharge to the ACC?
Absolutely. So in the existing condition, as you said, the property is mainly impervious area, what's entirely impervious area with the existing building, the bituminous concrete parking, and then the hard band gravel. So to meet the ACEC requirements, we've reduced that impervious area by adding the landscaping around the edge of the property, and there's approximately 7,000 square feet of that landscaping. And then also, all stormwater runoff that's generated as surface runoff from the proposed parking area will be discharged to the deep sump hooded catch basins and then ultimately to a proprietary separator before it's discharged to the existing drain line at the rear of the property. So those separators have, there's particular calculations that were performed by the designing company that show that it will meet the required TSS removal prior to discharging to the marsh as well. And then also the both proposed buildings will have their own stormwater infiltration facilities as well that have been sized to mitigate peak runoff for all storm events from the 2-year storm up to the 100-year storm event as well.
What's the TSS removal requirement for an ACEC?
I believe it's 85%. I can give you the actual number that each unit does. They are, yeah, that's correct. So each particular CDS unit is above the 85% required. One of them is 88% and the other is 85.4%. And like I said, the requirement is 85%, so each matches, meets or exceeds that as well.
And that's based on what type of maintenance?
So each unit will, each unit is maintained twice a year, and in the event that there's any type of, if it exceeds, the maintenance volumes, there's a manufacturer's requirement to maintain it, more frequently than that. But basically, it's a biannual maintenance on each particular unit as well, just to go in and verify that sediment levels aren't beyond the actual intent of each unit.
That's part of the O&M plan?
That's correct. Yes.
Anything else? Member Cassidy, did you have a question or a comment? Did you have a question or a comment?
No.
Thank you. Nobody else? Anybody in the audience? In favor or against? We have a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll make a motion.
It was by
I'll second it.
Nick. One of these days, I'll get it right. Second? Robert Cassidy, thank you. We have a motion to close the public hearing, issue an order of conditions which I prepared. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Voted. Here you go, Nick. Next item on the agenda is a public hearing, notice of intent, DEP File Number 0610699, Loomis Street, construction of 2 duplex dwellings and associated roadway improvements. You're welcome, Steve. Go ahead. Motion to open the public hearing.
I'll make a motion to open.
I'll second
by
it.
Vince. Second by Ann. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Voted.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. Again, for the record, Rick Salvo with Engineering Alliance, here this evening for property located on Loomis Street, which is owned, and the applicant is BJM Realty. Two of the managers of BJM Realty are here this evening, Brian Nolan and Jim Mercurio, and they will be the developers for this particular project. Loomis Street is located between
Thank you.
Goldie and Griswold off of Washington Avenue. The resource areas that were present at this particular site were both the 100-year floodplain, which is also known as land subject to coastal storm flowage, as well as it is in the buffer zone to a bordering vegetated wetland resource area that's located off-site.
Thank you.
These are two separate parcels of land that were purchased individually by BJM Investments. They're each comprised of 7,200 square feet. They make up a series of 4 tax map lots. As you know, in order for them to be considered duplex units in this particular zoning district, they would have to have 8,000 square feet. As such, the applicant was at the Board of Appeals. Board of Appeals or the City Council? Okay, it was Board of Appeals month before last to receive relief to allow for the construction of 2 duplex units. That was unanimously approved. So we are currently before you this evening to present a project that consists of 2 duplex dwelling units that are 38 feet wide by 39 feet long, as well as approximately 160 linear feet of improvement of Loomis Street. We did meet out on site with the city engineer and the DPW director just to sort of get a preview of what they would be looking for roadway improvements. It includes a cement concrete sidewalk on the developed side of the property, vertical granite curbing all the way around, and obviously 24 feet of bituminous concrete pavement, which basically matches the extent of Bellevue, of Loomis Street. If you look towards Goldie Street up this way, it's elevation 7, and then the property pitches towards the wetland resource area in the other direction down to about elevation 4 at the limit of the BVW, which is delineated by this A series of flags. The proposal for the proposed roadway improvements, if you look at the roadway profile, is to create from the end of Loomis Street a 1% grade that comes down to a low point, and then from the end of the existing pavement on Loomis Street, 1% pitch, which comes to a low point right about here where my pen is. If I show you in plan view, that particular low point is right about here. So this roadway grades 1% down this way, 1% down this way. We talked to the city engineer about how we're going to drain this roadway, and given the fact that there really isn't a tremendous amount of relief, it seemed to make the most sense to create sort of a country drainage scenario where we're going to put a 6-foot wide break in the curbing and then a water quality swale that will lead down towards the resource area. Where this project is only a 4-unit project, it's not required to meet the stormwater regulations, but with the implementation of the swale, as well as infiltration of the roof units, we're complying to the maximum extent practicable to the stormwater regs. The project also includes the extension of the water main. It's currently a 6-inch main. We'll be hooking on with an 8-inch piece at the request of the city engineer to a hydrant at the end. Gravity sewer, which will discharge back to the gravity sewer system that was recently redone in this area. And the 2 duplex units will include garage level parking, which would be located within the floodplain. That first level garage parking will be equipped with flow-through openings that were sized in accordance with the Massachusetts State Building Code. The upper floors the top of foundation will be elevation 9.5, so the first floor elevation will be about 1.5 feet above that. So about elevation 11, where we have a floodplain of elevation 9. So the first floor elevation, all the mechanicals, in accordance with the FEMA regs, will be all located outside of the floodplain. We also created sort of a swale in the middle of the property here to ensure that any runoff from the property gets directed back towards the marsh from whence it came, especially in terms of any flooding events that may occur. We did look at the options of trying to raise the grade of this site to get it completely outside of the floodplain. Unfortunately, given the fact that the road is down about elevation 5, it really wasn't feasible to bring 4 feet of fill into this site. So we're basically keeping the grading of the site the way that it is, tweaking it a little bit to make sure that any floodwaters that come from the resource area recede back to the resource area and don't make their way onto abutting properties. So we're maintaining the existing drainage patterns. And like I said, it just didn't seem to make sense to bring a whole bunch of fill in just to try to muscle these sites out of the floodplain where it really didn't work in this scenario. The previous case, we were within about 8 inches of the floodplain. Made sense to bring it up 8 inches. Doesn't make sense to bring these buildings up 4 feet. So I guess with that, I'd turn it back to the commission for any questions or comments you have.
Have you met with any of the neighbors, the butters?
Well, we've already been through the Board of Appeals. And
Okay.
as you know, the Board of Appeals notifies within 300 feet. Conservation Commission only notifies within 100 feet. So the answer to that is there was no other neighborhood meetings.
There are a few members of the neighborhood in attendance tonight. I'd like you to show them your plan and just do a simple explanation so they can see exactly what you're proposing in case they haven't seen it. And then we'll open it up to questions.
So, if we look at this, Bellevue Street right here, Loomis Street is right here, the site in question is located right in there, the wetlands I talked about are located over here. Okay, if that makes sense. So, to show you on sort of the bigger map, Bellevue Street side is this way. The elevation of this, the back side of this lot is on elevation 7. The elevation down here is elevation 5. The rain drains in this direction, not back towards Bellevue Street. When I talked about us not raising grade and all that stuff, that's what I was getting at. We're going to set this grade is going to remain elevation 7, then it's going to go to 6, then it's going to go to 5, and it discharges out over here towards the resource area. These are the 2 duplexes. This is the extent of the roadway extension. These are the driveway accesses. So I guess if you have any questions,
Yep, we'll open it up to questions. Any questions from the commissioners? James?
No, I'm happy to see the abutters here because I know Loomis Street has been a concern in the past, so as long as the abutters don't have any questions, I'm really pleased with this design. And if there are no other questions, I'll motion to close the hearing and issue an order of condition.
Yeah, before we do that, we'll ask for opponents, proponents. Anybody in the audience like to speak, come up to the microphone, state your name and address.
Yes, my name is Mark Maloney. I live at 64 Goldie Street, and I'm opposed to this plan. You know, we've had flooding in the past in the area, and I understand it's not in the runoff area, but that area floods. The city also can have some of the storm drains released in there when the water's coming in from Medford and other cities that has flooded significantly in the past. So my concern is the footprint is going to take away some trees, some absorption, and it's just going to displace the water toward the abutters. Thank you.
What's your last name again, Mark? I didn't catch it.
Maloney, M-A-L-O-N-E-Y.
Okay. Anybody else?
Hi, my name's Deborah Cacaviello, and I live at 59 Goldie Street, and the proposed site is right behind me. In '86, when Al Domino built these, I had an option to purchase another unit, and I asked Al, I wanted some privacy, could he give me another option? And he gave me the unit that I'm in. He told me back then in '86, when I put a deposit down, that no one would ever build behind me. I said, really, Al, you serious? He goes, Debbie, everything out there, you'll never have anyone build there. From here, all the way down to the end of the unit, which is, I'm the trustee of those 4 buildings. He said, there will be nobody that can build behind these units. My concern is both noise, it's both about the flooding, it's also about who's gonna live there. If they're just gonna be rentals, they're not gonna take care of the property like someone would. I've been there 31 years. And we had a lot of building in this area. And I just feel as though it's going to be a problem to a lot of things. Conservation itself, I mean, there's a lot of wild animals that are out there. We have coyotes, we have rabbits, we have pheasants, we have everything back there. And you're going to disrupt that whole area. Plus, it's right behind my house. And like I said, I was under the assumption that nothing would be built behind me. If I knew that then, I would have never bought there. For 31 years, I've been by myself. I look out and I have all trees. We did put up fences to separate the units for some privacy, but when I first got there, for 2 years, there were no fences there. It was absolutely gorgeous. We've got pear trees, apple trees, and a lot of wildlife. And that's what I wanted. I wanted to be close to Boston, to where I worked, but I also wanted the privacy of like being in a country setting. And that's why I purchased where I did. And that's why I've stayed there for 31 years. I was under the assumption also that this is within the 100-foot buffer zone. If I'm wrong, I want someone to correct me.
It is in the 100-foot buffer zone, but that does not prevent you from building, nor does land subject to coastal storm flowage prevent you from building. As I tell everybody, it's a matter of what you're proposing for building in a protected resource. Even as you saw, a couple of the submittals that we heard tonight, right adjacent to the area of critical environmental concern. That doesn't stop them from building.
My concern is if they build behind us, that it's not going to stop there. Across the street on the other side, there's also protected land there. And I also have neighbors and friends for many, many years that are concerned about that issue as well. Just a lot of concerns, it's too much.
Okay.
I mean, just trying to get out of Goldie Street is like ridiculous. I mean, try to get out of it, you can't, because all the traffic from Route 1 comes off to Sargent Street, and then they come down Washington Avenue, so you can barely get out. Now you're going to add 4 more units with more cars to try to get out. It's just congested. It just seems like it's way too congested. Not happy about it.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else?
My name is Annbeth Chinchillo. I live at 50 Goldie Street, and I've been at my house for 25 years. And I think the most important thing for my reason for staying in that neighborhood is all of that beautiful conservation land. My concern is what's going to happen when they dig all that up with all the coyotes and all the animals. There are so many. You know, you're just going to plow it over and get rid of them all. And I thought conservation land was to protect the wildlife, which we really value in my neighborhood. I have conservation land behind me as well, and if that's going to happen here, where, you know, she was told they would never build, is it going to happen behind me? And that's the reason I stay. You know, I don't like to pull down the end of my street and be gridlocked and not be able to take a left. You know, my street is congested with traffic and cars, and they're putting more and more rental property in our beautiful neighborhood, and they don't care for the property. We see it every day. The grass is waist high. We have to call the cars. And they just don't have the level of respect, the renters, and this is what we're seeing. Now we're taking beautiful conservation land, which is a jewel to the city, and we're putting in rental properties. And that's a big concern to me, because I really value that. The woods are on both sides.
Conservation land is sort of a misnomer. It's land that's subject to protection under the Wetlands Protection Act, but it's not conservation land per se, which is land held by the city for the purposes of conservation. If it was that, they wouldn't be building on it. But because it's privately owned, as long as they meet certain criteria.
Okay, well, it's also a very
But
congested area.
wildlife is one of the protected interests of the act, so that's a good point.
Yeah, it's very congested in our area. We can't take a left on most days after 4 p.m. We're gridlocked, we're stuck. So it's just more people. That's my concern.
Yeah, I can understand that issue, because I avoid Route 1 myself, coming
Yeah.
from Chelsea and use Washington Ave to Fuller
Yeah,
Street.
especially renters. That's the other issue, too. All right, thank you.
You're welcome. Anybody else?
Good evening. My name is John Miro. I live in 65 Goldie Street. I have two issues I would like to speak about. One is the previous owner of that land. I'm wondering if they tried before to build there. And if they tried, why they couldn't. All right? And I think that's something that we have to investigate. Maybe it was something, an issue that was discussed years ago. But if that happens, it will be good to know why it didn't move forward with the construction. Second,
We don't know that.
we don't know.
He didn't apply to this board in the last 17 years that I've been on it.
Okay. All right. Is there any way we can find out that?
You could try to talk to the building inspector. He's been here 17 years. How long ago do you think that occurred?
I don't know. I mean, I don't
You
know
it's
exactly.
tough to prove something that's a negative,
Okay.
unless he went to the boards and you know when he went, to give some idea of where to,
Yeah.
what time period to look up.
Yeah, well, I understand. And anyway, something else I would like to bring up to the table is the fact that, as my previous neighborhood said, is there are many new houses that being used for rentals. Okay? And the problem is that they are not renting the unit. They are renting the rooms. So we have 3, 4, 5 cars per unit. So I think that's something we have to be careful to, because
But that's not germane to the issues before us, which is the protection of statutory interests under the Wetlands Protection Act. That's another matter for the
Okay.
building department, for elected officials.
all right. Yeah, maybe it's not the moment, but I would like to anyway bring it up. All right. Thank you so much.
I did have a call from City Councilor Joanne McKenna this morning, and she had asked me about conservation land. She wasn't, she didn't give me the name of the person she talked to.
Okay, thanks.
Like to address some of these questions, Rick?
I would.
Can I add something, Andy?
Go right ahead.
Before
Jim.
that, it's just, I think there's some confusion with some of the neighbors. I know they're concerned about parking and rental units, but all of that has to get approved before it comes before the Conservation Commission. So what our job here is to just enforce the Wetland Protection Act, and there's some confusion about conservation land. It's not conservation land, but it is a resource area that's protected under the Wetland Protection Act. So our job is to review the plans to make sure they're in compliance and that they're improving existing conditions to the maximum extent practicable. So, really, that's the limit of our jurisdiction.
We also have a problem with rats.
Yeah, that's not our jurisdiction either.
I understand that, but I'm saying that once they do, if they get approved, once that gets, we're gonna be inundated. I mean,
As long as the coyotes stick around and the fox back there.
they're not gonna, you know what's gonna happen, they're gonna go to the streets. Coyotes.
Just a couple of points for clarification. These are condominiums, they're not going to be rentals. So they're going to be sold to owners, so they are not going to be rental units. These will be condominium for purchase. I think the second point is these are fairly modest footprints. We're talking about a 1,400 square foot footprint. We're talking about a lot coverage of 20% where 30% is required. It's a pretty small dwelling footprint. They are snugged up as close to the developed portion of the street as possible. You can see by looking at the plan, everything that's green on the plan, that these buildings can't be expanded any bigger without some form of relief. I think that the question of unit count and that sort of thing, to your point, would have been an appropriate question to have been raised at the Board of Appeals hearing, because, and we weren't involved at that point, but the Board of Appeals hearing is what granted the relief that allowed two duplexes here instead of one duplex. It's my understanding that these two properties were owned separately. They weren't held in common ownership with the land to the rear, so why the developer, although it wouldn't be the first time that I heard a story of a developer telling someone that the land behind them couldn't be developed, when in fact they had no control and no knowledge over it. I can't answer that. What I can tell you is these two property owners owned this property for quite some time. To the applicant's knowledge, there was never an attempt to try to develop this land. I think the gentleman the folks that owned them were getting up there in the years. The opportunity to do something had sort of passed them, and they decided just to sell the property as is, because, as you know, land value right now has a lot of value to it. So, like I said, in terms of exacerbating flooding issues, we're not proposing any fill here. We're proposing flow-through foundations. It's land subject to coastal storm flowage. If this is going to flood to elevation 9, it's going to flood to elevation 9, whether there's a hole on this property or whether there's a building on this property, with or without flow-throughs, because your tributary watershed area is the Atlantic Ocean. There's almost an infinite amount of water that's enabled to allow that flooding event to occur, should it occur. We were very careful not to raise any grades higher than the grade in the back of the property, so we could keep all the drainage patterns intact that are heading back towards the resource area, keeping in mind that we had residents in close proximity all the way around. We were very mindful of that when we put this proposal together. So I guess with that, I'd turn it back to the commission. Thank you.
Yeah, just could you comment on the concern related to tree clearings and maybe some potential additional landscape improvements?
If I may. Jim Mercurio, 193 Crescent Ave. We're not taking all the trees down. We're saving a lot of the big ones on the property. We're going to do selective pruning on them. As you know, I own a landscape construction company in Revere here, so I take great pride in the projects that we do in Revere, and along with all the tree planting that I do in Revere. If any of you have been down that area, it's been becoming a dumping ground. I would love all the members to go down there and just walk along the wetland side of it, which is getting inundated with grass, leaves, branches from the whole neighborhood. We intend to clean that site, beautify that area, and make it a real nice place to walk down there and look at the wetlands. You can't do that now. It's inundated with brush and overgrowth. So we're doing some selective pruning down there on some of the larger trees. Of course, where the houses sit, we have to remove those trees, but there's all small trees that are going to be removed on the site. And once again, these aren't going to be rental properties. These are going to be high-end condos that we're selling, ranging from $460 up.
So, Jim, if you could just, if the abutters would want to see maybe a sort of a conceptual landscape plan, whatever you propose for the future condition, if you could maybe present that to them, and we could have like a neighborhood meeting so they could feel better about the project.
Okay, sure. I'd be more than willing to and happy to do that. Yeah. Right. Correct. Exactly, it's all right. But if you walk the site now, and you go to the right side where the wetland is located, it is inundated with grass clippings, leaves and grass, branches. I'd be willing to take you down there, and you can see the mess that people have been dumping down there. It's becoming more of a dumping ground than anything. So we just like to enhance it, that's all we're gonna be doing.
My concern is congestion. Severe congestion where it once was not. I liked it the way it was. And I'm not saying not something to change, because I am, but I just wanted the privacy and I wanted, it's just there's too many buildings going up from Goldie Street on it. It's just getting so congested and the traffic is unreal.
I feel your pain because I see that all around Revere.
Just one thing on Golden Street, there was a 2-unit, 4-bedroom land that was waiting for years and years. They just put it up. We charged $4.99. We couldn't sell it because the price is way over what the market was there for that. So, and they ended up renting. So that's our concern. So,
I can guarantee you I will not be renting these units.
well, I can guarantee you're not going to get $4.69.
Well, we have certain things that that other property doesn't have. We're gonna have garages, you know.
Is it in the bylaws or the master deed that there's no rental for those buildings? Because we
no.
have, we can't have anyone that owns a business, they can't use it as commercial, property, and then any of their units. And my concern would be, would that be something that's subjected to those units? Could they rent it out? Could they lease it out? Could they?
Once we sell it to a specific person, they could do whatever.
They have to be maintained in the bylaws, like we have it in our bylaws. And we're strict about it. There's no businesses going in there, and we don't rent them. We're all unit owners.
I'd have to take that into consideration. Thank you.
If I may, Chairman.
Yes.
Right ahead, Ann.
As Commissioner Saboni mentioned a little bit early, most of these issues, if not all of them, are not part of our jurisdiction as conservation. And I feel your pain, and you have valid issues. But the fact that Commissioner Saboni suggested that perhaps you and this gentleman could get together and come to some amicable agreement, because, again, it is out of our jurisdiction. We have certain requirements that we approve or disapprove here, and some of your issues, in fact, all of them, are not in our jurisdiction or decision. We don't make decisions about your issues. We make it as far as conservation is concerned. And I believe this thing can be rectified if you would communicate with each other, and Commissioner Saboni brought up a very good suggestion, if I may add that.
Yeah, and just to add upon that, even approval of the landscape plan is something that's not within our jurisdiction. That would be just a good faith effort by the developer to meet with the neighbors and make you feel a little bit better about the project. So,
We had offered on Loomis Street planting trees as part of the mitigation, if you would sort of say. But none of the neighbors wanted trees in front of their house. So I would still be willing to offer that, street trees on Goldie Street and also on Loomis Street. Since I'm taking down trees, I would really like to plant some trees in the area. And by site plan review, we have to plant trees back on our property.
How many feet from behind my property is your intent to build? That's one of my biggest concerns. I have like a 30 or 40 square foot backyard. How many feet behind Goldie Street, behind 59?
30 feet from the rear property line. So then your house is probably another 30 feet from your rear property line, so it's probably about 60 feet between the two houses. Yeah, 30 feet. Two and a half stories.
Anything else from anybody in the audience? From commissioners? What's the will of the commission? I prepared an order of conditions for this project.
I believe we should close the meeting with
Is
an
that a
order of
motion?
conditions.
I'll motion to close the hearing and issue an order of conditions.
I just did that, I think.
We have a second?
I'll second it.
That was Nick. All those in favor?
I tried, but it didn't work.
Signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Voted.
Thank you very much.
There is an appeal process. If you're interested in doing that, let me know who I should send the documents to. You didn't get notified for the Board of Appeals? On this? Yeah, your direct abutter? Yes. I can't speak for that board. I can only speak. You did have what? So you want me to send you the information on appealing it? Send it to you? I didn't quite get your last name. It's 59 Goldie. And spell your last name again, please. I was looking for it. C-A. C-C-A. V as in victory. I-E-L-L-O. Cattiviello. Okay, you're welcome. I'll send you the information. I'll send you a copy of the signed order plus the appeal paperwork. Okay, you're welcome. Next item on the agenda is a vote, DEP File 0610688, a minor amendment for installation of utility poles. This is 205 The Parkway, the apartment building. They had to change what they were doing in the hotel with the utility poles, so they asked for an amendment. So if I have a motion to approve the amendment.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Vince Loria, second by Joseph LaValle. All those in favor?
Aye.
And the next item on the agenda is certificate of compliance. I actually want to wait on this because I asked them for an as-built and I haven't received an as-built. This is Suffolk Downs tract. And the other item I've got, which isn't on the agenda, is a certificate of compliance that we signed before, but the person who it was given to turned it into the building department, and they need it for their closure. So that's only a few people on the commission who signed the old one. And also talking about Suffolk Downs.
Yep.
There's 180 lots on there.
Okay.
It's just a repeat of the one that was done before. That the new owners of Suffolk Downs are going to set up a tour of the wetlands. It won't be official. The new owners of Suffolk Downs are going to set up a tour of the wetlands for wetland designation. I spoke about this with Joanne McKenna and her group, the Friends of Belle Isle Marsh. So I told her I'd like to invite the Conservation Commission along. I don't know when it's going to be yet, but when I do know, I'll let everybody know. You know, because I'd like you all to hear questions that the Friends of Belle Isle Marsh are going to be asking. They'll be asking a lot of relevant questions. So it'll begin discussion, because we had the discussion with them.
I'd be glad to attend.
What'd you say, Ian? Not yet, no. we'll have an unofficial one, then we'll have an official one. So other than that, it's motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion by Nick. Second, all those in favor? Adjourned at 8:15.